Gavin Robinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I say, not Madam Deputy Speaker, tall Dame Rosie, can I say it is a pleasure to follow my honourable friend from Plymouth Moorview, and indeed I hope they recognise that we will be supportive of the amendments in the name of the Right Honourable Member for New Forest East and the Right Honourable Member for Seven Oaks. I rise particularly, Madam Dame Rosie, to speak to Amendment 18. I will not refer to Amendment 19. I've signed it. It has my support, and you'll take that as read. But Amendment 18, I do want to touch upon, which you will see requires a report to be brought forward about the implementation of the Armed Forces Covenant in Northern Ireland. And members may remember that I brought forward a private members' bill on the 6th of February. It was supported by members of Parliament right across the Chamber and right across the country, all of whom accept that the Armed Forces Covenant is a national commitment to those who served us. It doesn't respect devolution. It doesn't respect borders. It was our way as a nation of saying the service that individuals have given and the sacrifice they themselves have made and their families in support of them is worthy of recognition. And as has been outlined by my right honourable friend, the member for Belfast North, it does not offer preferential treatment, but it ensures that those who served our country so well do not suffer any disadvantage. They are not precluded from the access of services because they have to move around. If it's applications for children to schools, for example, they do not lose out because they weren't living within the catchment area at the time of application, as one example. And it is fundamentally wrong, fundamentally immoral, fundamentally unacceptable that the Armed Forces Covenant does not apply equally in Northern Ireland. And if every member of this House accepts that to be the case, then it is incumbent upon us all, to support this government bringing forward legislation that will ensure no minister in a Northern Ireland executive has the opportunity or is given the freedom to abide by their political prejudice and frustrate the implementation of the Armed Forces Covenant in Northern Ireland. I'll give way to my friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would my honourable friend agree with me that this provides a really good opportunity for the British Government to say very clearly to British soldiers from Northern Ireland that you are as valued as a British soldier from any other part of this United Kingdom, and whether or not you get help should not rely on the whims, the bigotry and the hatred of a particular minister from Sinn Féin in that department denying those rights and support that those soldiers need.
I agree absolutely with my honourable friend Dame Rosie, and members who have followed me make contributions on this issue over the last number of years will recall time and again I have shared correspondence that was sent from Michelle O'Neill, the then Health Minister, on the 15th of December 2016, when she indicated, "I'm sorry, the Armed Forces Covenant doesn't apply here." She is wrong. But for as long as we refuse to take action, she is allowed to get away with her prejudice infecting the virtue of the Armed Forces Covenant. It's not right. And time and again we've had updates in this chamber and through the Defence Select Committee, in which it's a privilege to serve, where we hear in Armed Forces implementation reports, it's great. Each of the 11 councils in Northern Ireland has an Armed Forces champion. Yet nobody ever then seeks to realise that our councils in Northern Ireland have no responsibility for health. They have no responsibility for social services. They have no responsibility for housing. They have no responsibility for education. Indeed, in all of the operative departments where there is a meaningful role to play and a meaningful gift to give to those that served us so well, it falls to the Northern Ireland Executive. And how bizarre that when my right honourable friend, the member for Belfast North, relays to this chamber that a letter from the head of the Civil Service says, "I'm sorry I can't attend the Veterans Board because it wasn't previously agreed by the Executive." We are currently discussing an amendment to the Executive Functions Bill. The Executive Functions Bill which says that if it is in the public interest, senior departmental officials can take decisions. Yet Northern Ireland is left with a representative from the Northern Ireland office which has no ministerial responsibility or no operational involvement in our health or education, social services, schools. None. And yet we rely on the NIO when we are discussing currently a bill that gives its senior departmental official the ability to decide to attend. I clearly think that is in the public interest. Certainly will.
I thank my fellow member of the Defence Committee for giving way, and like him I believe it's a particular privilege to serve on that committee. Can he confirm that the decision by the Permanent Under-Secretary at the NIO not to attend the Veterans Board was discussed at our committee only today, and that, to put it mildly, we took a rather dim view of his view?
That is indeed correct. I'm grateful to my honourable friend from, or right honourable friend from Rayleigh. It's not the Permanent Under-Secretary from the Northern Ireland office, indeed it's the head of the Civil Service in Northern Ireland where the issue arises. The Northern Ireland office do attend, but they have no involvement in the issues that matter most. And Dame Rosie, I just want to put on record my disappointment yet again with the contribution from the Shadow Secretary of State, because he accepted, when considering Amendment 19, he accepted that there is no moral equivalence between a terrorist and a victim. He accepted that point. But when faced with a proposition, an amendment on the paper this evening that he could support, rather than say, I accept there is no moral equivalence and therefore I'm going to do something about it, what was his response? He said, move on. I think there's an opportunity, Dame Rosie, for the Shadow Secretary of State to reflect upon that. Given the comments that were made yesterday in this chamber about the partisan nature of amendments that were considered in the earlier session, the previous commitment that Labour always had, which was to play a constructive role when dealing with sensitive issues in Northern Ireland, well, they've doubled down this evening, Dame Rosie, and I think that is hugely regrettable. And I think that is something that is worthy of consideration and worthy of further reflection. I will give way to my right honourable friend, and then I recognise time constraints are with us, so I will.
Dame Rosie, I thank the honourable member for giving way. Just to add to the point that he is making, that we've heard from the front bench of the opposition today a lot about rights and a lot about the need to ensure that Northern Ireland citizens are treated the same as citizens in the rest of the UK when it comes to rights. And yet surely we all agree in this House that veterans of our armed forces have the right not to be disadvantaged by virtue of their service, and the opposition front bench is not prepared to do anything to address the fact that in Northern Ireland veterans are disadvantaged by virtue of their service, have to go to the end of the queue when they leave service, and that's not right. That's not what the Military Covenant says, and therefore the opposition should reflect on that and do something about the rights of veterans in Northern Ireland.
Well, I agree with my right honourable friend, albeit in fairness the comments that we were talking about attached to the amendment on victims' definition, and that the Shadow Secretary of State did indeed indicate that he would look at the report brought forward by government. But time moves on, and this is not a new issue. And over today and yesterday we have talked about the implementation of rights. And if it's right for armed forces personnel and veterans that live in Rochdale, then it should be right for those that live in East Belfast or across Northern Ireland. Dame Rosie, I am very grateful for the time that you have allowed, and I will take my seat.
Hearing, please.